Where are they? Margaret's shrill voice sliced through the quiet of my office, making me flinch in my chair. My ex-mother-in-law stood in the doorway, her manicured hands clutching a manila envelope, her face contorted with fury. Behind her, my ex-husband's sister, Amanda, looked just as angry. Where are who? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I signaled to my assistant to hold my calls. After 5 peaceful years since my divorce from David, I never thought I'd see the Hendersons again. Don't play dumb, Victoria, Margaret snapped, marching toward my desk. David's children, our grandchildren, the ones you've been hiding for 6 years. My stomach dropped. What? David and I never had children. Amanda stepped forward, grabbed the envelope from her mother, and dumped its contents onto my desk. Photos scattered across my files. These children, Victoria, stop pretending, she said coldly. My hands shook as I picked up the first photo. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, maybe 5 or 6, playing in a backyard. They had dark hair like mine, their features, vaguely familiar, but I had never seen them before in my life. I don't understand, I murmured. These aren't my children. David and I tried for years. That's part of why we split. We couldn't have kids. Lies, Margaret shouted. We have proof, medical records, birth certificates, school enrollment papers, everything. I felt dizzy. This had to be some twisted joke. I had never been pregnant. The fertility treatments had failed. David made sure I never forgot that. Get out, I said, rising to my feet. I don't know what this is, but I want you both out of my office, now. Amanda crossed her arms. Or what? You'll move them again like last time? Last time, I echoed, my voice cracking. I've never had kids to move. Margaret pulled out her phone. We are calling our lawyer. We have rights as grandparents. You won't get away with this. With trembling fingers, I picked up my own phone and called my attorney. Sarah had handled my divorce. She knew everything. Fine, I said, pressing dial. Let's get the lawyers involved. I can prove I've never had children. As the line rang, Margaret dumped more photos on my desk, pictures of the same children at a birthday party, on a beach, in front of a Christmas tree, all smiling, all complete strangers to me. Sarah, I said as she picked up, forcing my voice steady, I need you to come to my office, right now. David's family is here. They're claiming I've been hiding children. They have photos, documents. There was a brief pause on the other end. Say nothing else, Sarah said, her voice firm. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't let them leave. Margaret was still ranting when my assistant, Jackie, stepped in. Victoria, she said nervously, there's a man here asking about the children. Says he's a private investigator hired by Mr. Henderson. My heart sank. David was behind this. But why? Send him in, I said, locking eyes with Margaret. Let's see what you've cooked up. The man who entered wore a wrinkled suit and carried a thick folder. He introduced himself as Frank Moore, and despite his role, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Mrs. Reed has used several aliases over the past 6 years, he said, addressing Margaret and Amanda. She's moved the children through 3 states, always staying ahead of Mr. Henderson's attempts to find them. That's ridiculous, I cut in. I've lived in the same house for 8 years and worked here for 10. Anyone can confirm that. Frank opened his folder. Inside were school records, medical files, even birth certificates, all claiming that I, Victoria Reed, had given birth to twins on May 15th, 6 years ago. And I had no memory of any of it. But I hadn't. I would remember giving birth. I would remember having children. I would know if I were a mother, wouldn't I? A chilling doubt crept in. There had been that 3-month stretch during my marriage, when I was drowning in depression, lost in a fog of medications and therapy. But still, pregnancy, childbirth, that wasn't something you just forgot, right? Before I could spiral further, Sarah burst into the office. One look at the scattered photos, the thick stack of documents, and Margaret's smug expression, and her face hardened. Everyone sit down, she snapped. Victoria, not another word. Mr. Moore, I need every document you brought. Now, And I want to know who hired you, and when. As Sarah took control, I sat frozen, staring at the photos of the children they swore were mine. The girl's crinkled nose, the boy's dark eyes, that hair, so much like mine. Their smiles were hauntingly familiar. But they weren't mine. They couldn't be. Could they? The next morning, I sat in Sarah's office, staring at the documents spread across her desk. She'd stayed late, going over every single piece of evidence. "These are excellent forgeries," she said, holding up a birth certificate. "But they're still fake. See this? Mercy General Hospital, Portland. It shut down in 2015, an entire year before this document claims you gave birth there." I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "So, I'm not crazy. Those aren't my children." "No," Sarah confirmed, "but someone went to great lengths to make it look like they are. The real question is, why?" I picked up one of the photos again, studying the kids' faces. They do look like they could be mine and David's, and the timeline would match if I had been pregnant during that period when I was at my worst. Sarah's eyes sharpened. "Victoria, I need the truth. Is there any chance, any at all, that you had children and don't remember?" "No," I said without hesitation. "Yes, I was depressed. Yes, the fertility treatments failed. David was already drifting away, but I wasn't so far gone that I'd forget something like that." Sarah nodded, starting to reassemble the papers into neat stacks. "Then our next step is clear. We need to find out who these children really are, and why David's family is so convinced they belong to you." Just then, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face turned grim. "Well, that didn't take long. David just filed for an emergency custody hearing. He's claiming you kidnapped his children 6 years ago, and he's only now managed to find them." I jumped to my feet, heart pounding. "That's insane. There are no children." "Sit," Sarah said, calm and steady. "This might actually work in our favor. If he's going to court, we can get him on the record, under oath. Let's hear him explain where these missing children have been all this time." I sank back down, my mind spinning. But then a terrifying thought took root. What if David did have children? What if he had them with someone else, while we were still married, and now, for some reason, he was trying to make me their mother? Sarah's eyes lit up with a spark of possibility. "You know what? That might not be far off. Give me a second." She turned to her computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. A few minutes later, she leaned back, eyes gleaming. "Bingo, meet Emily Carson, pediatric nurse. Started working at County General 7 years ago. Right around the time you and David were going through fertility treatments," Sarah said, turning her laptop toward me. I froze. On the screen was a social media profile, Emily, a blonde woman, standing with 2 dark-haired children, the same children from the photos. "Those are her kids," I whispered. "But why would David?" "Because 6 years ago," Sarah said, scrolling through the profile, "Emily filed a paternity suit against a prominent businessman. The case was sealed, but the timing lines up." I stared at the screen. "David," I said quietly, "he got her pregnant while I was going through IVF, while we were trying to build a family." The puzzle pieces clicked into place. My emotional breakdown. David's claim that I'd been pregnant and just didn't remember. His family's conviction the children were mine. "He's been lying to everyone," I said, my voice trembling. "He told them I was their mother to hide his affair, and now that Emily's gone public, he has to keep the lie alive. Or the whole story collapses." Sarah nodded. "But he made one fatal mistake." "What?" She held up the forged birth certificate. "He used your name, but left Emily's original names for the twins, James and Lily Carson. Not Henderson, not Reed." She gathered the documents into a folder. "The emergency custody hearing is tomorrow. I think it's time we let Emily Carson speak for herself." I looked again at the photo. David's children, but not mine. Never mine. "His family really doesn't know, do they?" I murmured. "They truly believe I stole their grandchildren." "That's what David wanted them to believe," Sarah said. "It was easier than telling the truth." I stood, spine straightening. Let's see how they handle the truth now. As I stepped out of Sarah's office, my phone buzzed. A message from Margaret. We are praying you'll do the right thing and bring our grandchildren home. I saved the text. Tomorrow, they'd find out what the right thing really was, and it wasn't what they expected. I looked at Emily's photo one last time. The children deserved better, deserved the truth, and tomorrow, they'd get it. The courtroom was packed the next morning. David sat at the plaintiff's table, smug and composed. Behind him, Margaret and Amanda glared at me like I'd committed a crime. But Sarah had placed me in the perfect spot, close enough that when Emily walked in with the twins, David's face went ghost white. "What is she doing here?" he hissed to his lawyer. Before anyone could answer, the judge entered and called the hearing to order. David's lawyer launched into a dramatic opening, accusing me of kidnapping, denying a family their grandchildren, painting David as the victim. Margaret wept behind him, buying every word. Then it was our turn. "Your Honor," Sarah said, standing, "before we begin, I'd like to submit the original birth certificates for James and Lily Carson, and documentation of their mother's paternity suit filed 6 years ago." Objection, overruled. "These are the children Mr. Henderson claims were stolen from him," Sarah continued, "but they're sitting right here, with their real mother, Emily Carson. The only theft here is Mr. Henderson's lie, stealing the truth from his family, and trying to rewrite these children's identities." The judge flipped through the documents, then looked sharply at David. "Mr. Henderson," he said, "can you explain why there are 2 birth certificates for these children?" There must be some kind of mix-up," David stammered. "No," Emily spoke clearly from the bench behind us. "The only mistake was thinking you could hide the truth forever. These are my children, our children, the ones you denied, until it suited you to claim them." Margaret and Amanda gasped. The judge called a recess to review the documents, but it didn't matter. David's story had already unraveled. And this time, there was no putting it back together. During the break, Margaret approached me in the hallway, her face pale and shaken. "Victoria," she said, almost in a whisper, "we didn't know. He told us you'd had a breakdown, that you took the babies and disappeared. And you believed him." I replied softly, "just like you believed him when he said our fertility treatments failed because of my stress, because that was easier than questioning your perfect son." She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Emily appeared with the twins in tow. "Mrs. Henderson," Emily said gently, "I think it's time you met your grandchildren, really met them." I stepped aside, watching as Margaret's gaze settled on the children. The defiance in her eyes melted, replaced by something far more human: shame, regret. Back in the courtroom, the judge wasted no time. David's emergency custody petition was denied. Worse for him, the forged birth certificates had triggered a criminal investigation, and potential charges for fraud were already being discussed. As he rushed past me, avoiding eye contact, I couldn't help myself. "Was it worth it?" I asked. "All those years of lying, just to avoid admitting you cheated?" He stopped, jaw clenched, and turned to face me. "You always had everything," he muttered, "the career, the sympathy, the image. You don't know what it's like to keep failing everyone." "No," I said, steady and clear. "I only know what it's like to be failed, by the man I trusted, and by a family who would rather blame me than face the truth about him." 6 months later, a letter arrived from Emily. Inside was a photo of the twins, grinning at their 7th birthday party, surrounded by balloons, cake, and the Henderson family. Everyone but David. He was serving time for falsifying documents. "They ask about you sometimes," Emily had written. "I tell them you're the brave lady who helped their grandparents find them. Maybe one day, when they're older, they'll understand everything." I pinned the photo on my office wall, right beside my law degree and a clipping from the paper detailing David's conviction. Not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd reclaimed. The truth. My name. And finally, closure. Margaret still sends me Christmas cards. Each one carries a short, handwritten apology. I keep them in a drawer, unopened. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. As for me, I sold the old house and moved to a new city, where no one knows my past. My office now overlooks the sunrise, and every morning it reminds me, sometimes, losing what you thought you wanted leads you exactly where you're meant to be. The children, who were never mine, are happy, safe, and surrounded by people who finally know the truth. And every now and then, on quiet evenings, I look at their photo and smile. Because choosing the truth, even when it hurt, was the right thing. And in the end, that was enough.